Imagine standing at the back of your own funeral, watching the woman who pushed you into a freezing lake cry crocodile tears into your son's shoulder. I am a retired architect. I know exactly how to build a legacy, but I never expected I'd have to design my own death just to save my family from a monster. As I stood in the shadows of my own memorial service, watching my daughter-in-law reach for a glass of champagne to celebrate my accident, I realized that being dead was the only way I could finally make her pay. My name is Arthur Langford, and for over 40 years, I poured my soul into blueprints and beams, turning empty lots into towering structures that define London's skyline. I started my firm in a cramped office above a fish and chip shop in the East End, sketching designs on napkins during lunch breaks. Brick by brick, I built an empire, Langford Architects, handling everything from sleek corporate high-rises to cozy family homes. By the time I retired at 65, I had a portfolio that spanned continents, a comfortable flat in Kensington with views of Hyde Park, and enough savings to ensure my family never wanted for anything. But retirement wasn't the golden sunset I'd imagined. My wife, Amelia, the love of my life and my anchor through every storm, had been taken by ovarian cancer 10 years earlier. Her absence left a void in our home that echoed like an empty cathedral. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards or the distant hum of traffic outside. That's when my son, Ethan, became my lifeline. Ethan was 35, a sharp-minded analyst in the cutthroat world of high finance at a firm in the city. He'd married Sarah 5 years ago, a woman who seemed picture-perfect at first, ambitious, charming, with a smile that could light up a room. She worked as a senior associate in an investment firm, handling multi-million-pound deals with the poise of a seasoned pro. When their son, Leo, arrived 6 months ago, it felt like a new chapter. Leo was a bundle of joy with chubby cheeks, and Amelia's bright blue eyes staring back at me. I threw myself into grandfatherhood, driving up to their home in Notting Hill every weekend. I'd rock Leo to sleep with stories of the buildings I designed, help with the endless cycle of feedings and nappy changes, and even cook family dinners, roast beef with all the trimmings, just like Amelia used to make. I thought we were a solid unit, a family rebuilt from the ashes of loss. I thought Sarah appreciated my presence, calling me Dad with what I believed was genuine affection. But cracks in the foundation started appearing. Subtle at first, like hairline fractures in concrete that you dismiss until the whole structure groans. Sarah's forgetfulness began with small things, leaving her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, or her laptop open in the living room. I'd chalk it up to new mom exhaustion. Then came the Tuesday that shattered everything. I was at their house, watching Leo while Sarah dashed out for groceries. Her phone buzzed on the changing table, and I glanced over instinctively. It wasn't a text notification. It was a live feed from a surveillance app, streaming high-definition video straight from our family lake house in the Cotswolds, a sprawling property I designed myself 20 years ago as a weekend retreat. The feed showed the North Wing's living room, where a man I recognized as Marcus Hale, Sarah's boss at the firm, lounged in my favorite leather armchair by the fireplace. He was smirking at the camera, raising a glass of what looked like my prized 30-year-old Macallan single malt scotch. Below the video, a text from Marcus popped up. The structural survey is complete. The balcony railing in the north wing is loosened. Just a few bolts tampered with. Nothing obvious. One stumbled during the storm this weekend, one drunken fall, and the architect becomes a memory. Then the trust fund is ours. Make sure the old man has plenty of that scotch in him. My blood ran cold, freezing in my veins like the winter wind off the lake. This wasn't just an affair. It was a meticulously plotted demolition of my life. I'd set up a trust fund for Leo worth over £5 million, invested in blue-chip stocks and property bonds. Money that would secure his future, but with ironclad stipulations. Sarah couldn't access a penny while I was alive, and even after my death, it required Ethan to be stable and involved. If Ethan were deemed unfit, say, due to grief-induced instability, they could petition to redirect the funds. Marcus, with his greasy charm and history of shady deals, was the perfect partner in crime. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hands trembling as I forwarded the evidence of my own secure email before deleting the trace. My mind raced through blueprints of escape and revenge. Architects don't panic. We assess, reinforce, and rebuild. Sarah didn't drop the act. The very next day, she breezed into the kitchen with a concerned smile, suggesting a healing weekend at the lake house. "Dad, you've been so down lately," she cooed, placing a hand on my arm. "The fresh air will do you good. Ethan and I can handle Leo, and you can just relax by the fire." But I knew the subtext. Relax with glass in hand, stumble out to the balcony to admire the view, and meet my engineered end. In the weeks leading up, she'd been planting seeds of doubt in Ethan's mind, whispering about my forgetfulness, claiming she'd seen me wobbling after a drink or two. She even staged a small incident, spilling water on the floor and blaming it on my shaky hands. If I fell, it wouldn't look like murder. It'd be the sad, inevitable accident of a grieving widower losing his grip on reality. I played along, nodding agreeably while my brain worked overtime. I spent the next few days preparing in secret. As an architect, I knew the lake house inside out, every joist, every hidden nook. I'd installed discrete security cameras years ago for insurance purposes, wired to a cloud server only I could access. I reviewed the footage and saw it all. Sarah and Marcus sneaking in during weekdays, tamper with a balcony railing in the north wing, a secluded spot overlooking the lake. They'd use a cordless saw to weaken the supports, filing down bolts to make it look like natural wear from the elements. I also discovered their affair wasn't new. Timestamps showed months of rendezvous in my own guest bedroom, their laughter echoing to the halls I'd built for family. But the moment that truly broke me came one evening, when I decided to surprise them with an early visit to the lake house. I'd told Ethan I wouldn't come until the weekend, but something nagged at me, a gut feeling like a miscalculated load-bearing wall. I arrived unannounced, parking my car down the lane to avoid detection. As I approached the house on foot, the lights were on in the upstairs bedroom. I let myself in quietly through the side door, intending to call out, but then I heard it, a low, muffled moan drifting down the stairs. My first thought was relief. Maybe Ethan had come home early as a surprise. Perhaps they'd reconciled after one of their rare arguments. I started to turn back toward the kitchen, smiling at the idea of joining them for a late tea. But then it clicked. Ethan couldn't be back. He'd texted me just an hour ago from a client dinner in London, complaining about traffic. My heart began to pound, a heavy thud echoing in my ears like hammers on steel girders. I froze, listening harder. The moan came again, deeper this time, followed by ragged, hard breathing, inhales sharp and desperate, exhales laced with pleasure, then a giggle, light and flirtatious, unmistakably Sarah's. "Oh, Marcus, you devil," she whispered, her voice husky. If Arthur knew what we were doing in his precious lake house. Marcus's chuckle rumbled in response. "He won't know a thing until he's at the bottom of that lake. Now, come here. Let's make this night count before the storm hits." I crept closer, my pulse roaring like a freight train, each step on the creaky stairs feeling like it might give me away. Peering through the cracked door, I saw them, entwined on the bed, sheets twisted around their bodies, the room reeking of betrayal and my own scotch. It was a scene that seared into my mind, a blueprint of deceit I could never erase. I slipped away without confronting them, my world crumbling like a poorly reinforced foundation. Saturday night loomed, the sky over the Cotswolds darkening to an ominous purple, bruised and swollen with the promise of violence. The forecast predicted a brutal storm, gale-force winds whipping across the lake, rain lashing like needles, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Sarah drove us up, chattering brightly about family bonding, while Ethan focused on the road, oblivious to the trap. We arrived as the first drops fell, the house groaning under the assault. Inside, the fire crackled warmly, but the air felt charged with menace. Sarah poured drinks generously, my scotch, of course, insisting I relax. "You've earned it, Dad," she said, her eyes gleaming with false warmth. As the storm peaked, winds howling through the eaves and waves crashing against the shore below, she suggested we step out to the north wing balcony. "The view of the lightning over the water is breathtaking," she urged, leading me by the arm. The balcony was exposed, a cantilevered platform I designed for stargazing, now a death trap. Rain slicked the wooden planks, the railing once sturdy oak, now wobbling imperceptibly under my test grip earlier that day. She positioned herself behind me, her presence a shadow in the flickering lightning. "Dad, you've had too much scotch tonight," she murmured, her voice silky but edged with steel. "Be careful near the edge." I leaned forward slightly, feigning a stumble, and felt her hands, cold, manicured fingers that cradled my grandson, pressed firmly into my lower back. Not a shove, but a calculated push, leveraging my weight against the weakened barrier. The railing gave way with a sickening crack, splintering like brittle bones. I plummeted over the edge, the drop a sheer 20 feet to the churning lake below. The wind tore at my clothes as I fell, twisting the air to control my entry. I prepared meticulously. Under my bulky sweater and trousers, I wore a slimline thermal wetsuit, rated for sub-zero waters, with neoprene gloves and booties for grip. Tucked in my boot was a waterproof GPS tracker, synced to a burner phone in my secret flat. I'd also stashed a compact emergency scuba regulator, a palm-sized device with a 10-minute air supply, in a waterproof pouch strapped to my thigh, along with a chem light for signaling if needed. I hit the water feet first, slicing through the surface like a knife to minimize impact. The cold was a hammer blow, shocking my system, but the wet suit insulated me, trapping a layer of warm water against my skin. I didn't flail. Instead, I kicked deep, lungs burning, oriented myself in the inky blackness. The lake's depth here was 15 meters, but I knew the topography like my own blueprints. The shelf dropped off sharply, but a submerged rock outcrop provided cover. I swam underwater toward the pilings of the old pier, 50 yards away, using efficient strokes to conserve energy. Surfacing briefly in the shadows, I heard Sarah's scream pierce the storm, a theatrical wail, Oscar-worthy in its hysteria. "Arthur? Oh, God, no. Ethan, help." He slipped. I tried to grab him. She was leaning over the broken railing, flashlight beams sweeping the waves. But the storm masked my escape. I ducked under again, activating the regulator for a few precious breaths, and waited in the frigid gloom as searchlights from the house danced overhead. They called the authorities, but the storm made rescue impossible that night. By dawn, I was long gone, swimming to a hidden cove where I'd prepositioned a dry bag with clothes, cash, and keys to a nondescript rental car. I drove to my secret basement flat in a quiet corner of Camden, bought years ago under a shell company for just such contingencies, an architect's paranoia paying off. It was sparse but functional. A bed, a computer set up with encrypted access to my cameras, and stacks of non-perishable food. For the next 30 days, I became a specter, monitoring their every move. The first 2 weeks were agony to watch. Sarah oscillated between crocodile tears and cold calculation. She'd cling to Ethan, sobbing into his shoulder at breakfast, murmuring, "I can't believe he's gone. Poor Arthur." But as soon as Ethan stepped out to console friends or tend to Leo's cries, her mask dropped. I'd see her on video calls with Marcus, lounging in my study, sipping wine. "The probate's moving fast," she'd whisper, a sly smile creeping across her face. No body means no foul play, just a tragic accident. Ethan's falling apart. He's hitting the bottle hard. By next month, we'll have him committed or at least painted as unstable. Then the trust is Leo's and ours to manage. Marcus would laugh, toasting her through the screen. "Brilliant work, darling. Soon we'll be sipping cocktails on a yacht, far from this dreary island." I used that time to build my counteroffensive. Drawing on old contact from my firm, I hired a forensic accountant discreetly, paying in cryptocurrency to avoid traces. We unearthed the financial rot. Sarah had been diverting funds from Ethan's accounts. Small transfers at first, escalating to tens of thousands funneled into an offshore Cayman Islands account under Marcus's control. Fake invoices for consulting services, manipulated stock trades. It was a web of fraud that could bankrupt Ethan within a year. I compiled it all, audio clips in the cameras capturing their plot discussions, high-res video of their illicit meetings, bank statements, and even GPS data from Sarah's phone, placing her at the lake house during the sabotage. Weeks 3 and 4 were the controlled demolition. I anonymized the dossier, packaging it as a confidential security audit from a fictitious firm, and emailed it to Ethan with a burner account. I timed it perfectly just before my memorial service. The service was held at the lake house, transformed into a somber venue with floral arrangements and black draped tables. Friends and colleagues gathered, sharing stories of my designs. Sarah played the grieving widow by proxy flawlessly, dabbing at her eyes in a form-fitting black dress, raising a champagne flute to toast my enduring legacy. That's when I made my entrance. I'd slipped in through the back, hidden in the shadows of the garden folly I'd built years ago. As Sarah began her speech, Arthur was more than a father-in-law. He was the foundation of our family. I stepped through the French doors. The room froze, gasps rippling like a shock wave. Her glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished oak floor, red wine spreading like accusation. Her face drained of color, shifting from ghostly white to ashen gray. Then a nauseous green as realization hit. But she recovered like the actress she was, rushing toward me with arms outstretched. "Arthur, oh my God, you're alive. It's a miracle," she cried, voice cracking with feigned ecstasy. "I tried so hard to grab you. I reached out, but the rain—" "Ethan, look. He's back." I held up a hand, my voice steady as reinforced concrete. "Save the performance, Sarah. The railing wasn't rotted. It was sawn through. And those cameras you thought were just for the view, they capture audio too. We heard every word of your plans." Ethan, who'd received my dossier that morning, stepped forward, his face a mask of shattered trust and simmering rage. He cradled Leo protectively, his free hand trembling as he pulled out his phone and hit play. The room filled with damning audio. Sarah and Marcus's laughter, their whispers about my final splash, the clink of glasses sealing my fate. Sarah's facade crumbled like cheap plaster. Her eyes darted wildly, seeking escape, but the police, tipped off by Ethan minutes before, were already closing in. She snarled, spitting venom. "It was all Marcus. He forced me. You're a doddering old fool. Arthur, you were going to croak soon anyway. You've had your time. Let me have mine." She thrashed as the cuff snapped on, kicking at the officers, her heels gouging the floorboards as they hauled her away, her screams echoing into the night. The trial was a spectacle, dissected in the tabloids as the architect's revenge. Sarah faced charges of conspiracy to murder, attempted murder, wire fraud, and grand larceny. Marcus turned on her, claiming she was a mastermind, but the evidence was airtight. My dossier, plus forensic analysis confirming the sabotage. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for seeing through lies, sentenced Sarah to 20 years in a women's prison up north, stripping her of all parental rights. Marcus got 15 years in a maximum security facility, his license revoked, his assets seized. Ethan divorced her swiftly, the proceedings a clean cut through the rot. But justice didn't heal the wounds overnight. The first 2 years post-trial were a haunting for Ethan. He moved back to the Kensington flat with me, Leo toddling around the rooms that once held Amelia's ghost. Ethan was hollow-eyed, jumping at shadows, second-guessing every kindness. He'd wake from nightmares, sweating, reliving the betrayal. Work suffered. He took a leave from finance, focusing on therapy and fatherhood. I was there every step, rebuilding our family foundation. Morning walks in the park with Leo, quiet evenings sharing blueprints of our future. Slowly, the cracks mended. Then came Maya. She entered our lives like a gentle dawn, a 32-year-old preschool teacher with warm brown eyes and a laugh that filled the silence. They met at Leo's playgroup. She didn't pry into Ethan's guarded heart, but showed up consistently with homemade cookies, offers to babysit, patient conversations about nothing and everything. On the second anniversary of the accident, we returned to the lake house, now fortified, balconies rebuilt with steel reinforcements, new security systems installed. Ethan took Maya out to that very spot, the sun setting over calm waters. I lingered in the doorway, giving them space. He poured out the story, tears streaming, his voice breaking as he described the depth of the deception. Maya listened without judgment, then took his hand. "You've built something stronger from the ruins," she said, glancing at me with quiet admiration. "And I'll help you keep building." They married a year later, a small ceremony by the lake, Leo as the ring bearer, giggling in his tiny tux. As for Sarah, A few years in, I heard whispers through old contacts. A prison acquaintance mentioned she tried to reach out, claiming remorse, begging for a visit. But I wasn't interested. Her pleas were just another facade, another attempt to manipulate. I'd already closed that chapter. The structure was sound without her. At 68, I've learned life's blueprints aren't set in stone. Storms come unbidden, but with foresight, you can engineer survival. If betrayal has toppled your world, remember, truth is the ultimate reinforcement. It may rise slowly like a tide eroding lies, but it's inexorable. Surround yourself with genuine supports, not decorative facades. And when pushed to the edge, dive deep, swim strong. You've got the design within you to emerge unbreakable. If the story of cunning survival and hard-won justice gripped you from start to finish, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button below. Turn on notifications so you never miss another tale of betrayal turned triumph from our collection of dramas. Your support keeps these stories coming. Share in the comments if you face a similar twist, and let's build a community that stands strong against the storms. Thanks for watching.